Hello, hello. Welcome, everybody. Happy Thursday. Good morning to the West Coast. Good afternoon to the East Coast. If you're in Central, maybe it's around brunch time. Hello, Ms. Palmer. Nice to see you. Hello, Mr. Keffer. Ms. Carolyn. Hello, Mr. Molnar, Ms. Tammy. Of course, Ms. Ramos is sitting there. You eating a peanut butter and egg sandwich, ma'am? Is that what you're eating right now?
I am, yes, a peanut butter and egg burger. How's that?
Sounds not delicious. Hello, everybody. Hello, Miss Herbert, Miss Bridget, Mr. Sky, Mr. Anthony. Hello. Darian, wasn't expecting you. Hello. All right, everybody. Cool. We're going to give it about another minute, and then we're going to dive in. You are going to need something to write with and draw with. We're going to be doing some artwork today. You'll be the only one that's able to see it, though. So definitely get a pen and a paper. We're talking about maybe not the most exciting topic out there, but one of the most important, especially as you grow and as your team grows. If you've ever been on one of these webinars, I always ask if you can to turn your camera on so I can see your beautiful face. If you're in the bathroom, don't do that. If you like note-taking, grab a pen and a paper of some sort. You could also use like a Word document on your computer and get prepared to move your fingers in the chat. Like to see some engagement, provides me with a feedback loop on whether or not you guys are picking up what I'm throwing down. So let's go ahead and kick it off. How many meetings are you currently hosting for your team each week? Not trainings, meetings. Go ahead and let me know in the chat. Is that 1 meeting a week, 2 meetings a week, 5 meetings a week? How many are you doing? Mr. Molnar says 3. Ms. Ramos says 1. Keep them coming, guys. 1. Ms. Carolyn, not weekly. Mr. Keffer, 1 planned. I like how you said planned, because sometimes there are some impromptu meetings that have to occur based off of what's going on in the school. 3, 2, none weekly. Okay, Miss Bridget, 1 to 2. Awesome. So it seems like I think 3 is the max in terms of weekly is what we got. Okay, I host 1, I attend 2 others. Very cool. Okay, here's my next question for you. For each one of these meetings, so if you put 2, it's got to be for both of them. If you put 3, it's got to be for all 3. Do you follow a specific agenda every single time? Like, no matter what, this is the agenda that we are following. Give me a yes or a no in the chat box. Are you following a specific agenda? All right. 1 yes, handful of no's. Mr. Molnar, yes. Bridget, at my meeting, yes. The instructors, no. Okay, not really. All right, cool. Last question for you, and then we're going to dive in. Mr. Sky, I love seeing those 2 beautiful words, the level 10 being on a scale of 1 to 10. Okay, so on a scale of 1 to 10, how effective do you believe your current meeting setup, when we're talking about the rhythm, so that how often we're having the meetings, the consistency of the meetings, that you have an agenda. 10 is like, man, our meeting flow is rock star. I can't imagine it being any better. 1 is, man, some of these meetings feel like it could have been an email. Oofa. Anybody ever been to a meeting where it's like, that just should have been an email, right? Okay. All right. Somewhere in the middle. Okay, cool. 9 is the average score from our participants. But when you're doing a level 10, you actually get a score, right? And that's exactly what I asked, why I asked everybody for a score. Mr. A says a 10. Awesome. Well, hopefully, Mr. A, you can take 1 or 2 things away today that you would be able to implement in your school. let me go ahead and share the keynote here. Can you guys give me a thumbs up if you can see my keynote? Are we good? Awesome. Okay. So as always, thank you for taking the time to be here. You guys wear a lot of hats. You have a lot of to-dos, and definitely will make sure that your time is well spent today. We still got a bunch of people popping in. My mission from now until, about 1 p.m. Eastern time is to provide you with 6 types of meetings that we have personally implemented in all of my companies, so that you could just start communicating more effectively with your team and master your meetings. Now, these are not 6 weekly meetings, because then we'd be spending all of our time in meetings. But these are the 6 meetings that is what we consider our meeting rhythm, and what has allowed us to be better communicators, which oftentimes when there is any type of friction in our business, it's typically because there was some form of lack of communication. Okay. I'm going to break these 4 categories. Okay. Those categories are going to be annual meetings, quarterly meetings, weekly meetings, and daily meetings. So maybe you currently don't have any annual meetings, or maybe you currently don't have any quarterly meetings or weekly meetings. Okay. What I'm not asking you to do is to try to implement and go from, some of you said you're not having any meetings right now, and try to implement all 6. You're going to set yourself up for failure. I want you to implement the one that you believe is going to help you and your academy with your staffing that you currently have the most. Okay. Quick code of honor. Let's be present. Let's shut off distractions. I know on these Zooms, it's very easy to have multiple tabs open. I am not one of those people that can have like 30 tabs open. That gives me anxiety. I think maybe like 5 or 6 is the max. Let's shut down the tabs. Let's close out Facebook. Let's put the phone on silent or vibrate it. And let's be open and participate. Please take notes. And I would ultimately like you to leave with 1 action step implementing one of these different types of meetings. Okay. If all of that sounds good, give me a yes in the comments, and we will unpack the 6 type of meetings to help you really shift from owner operator to business leader. Awesome. Okay. So when I think of meetings, I think sometimes the word alone can just completely push people away from wanting to run these. And I think it's oftentimes just because they don't have a great way and a set way. But when I think of meetings being efficient, it's because these things are happening. There is open communication and dialogue. I know when I first opened my school, Gracie Pack, I was very much of a dictator type of leader. And when we were in meetings, I was the one that was predominantly talking the most. And now the way that we've shifted our meetings, it's our team members that are talking the most. We want to make sure that problems get solved. Sometimes a meeting just feels like nothing got solved, and now we have to wait until the next meeting to try to solve it. So we need to have, as a part of an agenda, a specific part of the meeting to do problem solving. Okay. Team building is a great way, meetings are a great way to build team, to build culture if you are hosting it appropriately. And I believe having that agenda and having a specific agenda for each one of these types of meetings will help you. Great meetings also have accountability. How often do you have a meeting with your team, and then the next week there were some form of action step that was supposed to get done, and then it didn't get done? You have to have specific accountability built into your meeting agenda. And we also want to have room for feedback and improvement. Okay. What I think often happens is that we get sidetracked in meetings when we don't have a specific agenda, right? You might have like a list of things that you want to talk about, but if we are starting and we're kicking off with maybe looking at the data of the school, and some of the data points are off track, oftentimes you can go on this tangent that can last 5, 10, 20 minutes just talking about this one KPI, and then you never get to the rest of what your to-dos were. I think not having a proper setup also means you have limited participation. You need to build in participation into your meetings. We also want to have a flow where healthy conflict can exist and that arguments aren't ensuing. We want everybody to leave with having some form of clarity of what their next steps and their next action steps are. And, ultimately, we just don't want anybody leaving feeling like it was a waste of time. Okay. Mr. Keffer said, I hope we talk about how you made that shift. Yes, sir. I mean, this is one of the big puzzle pieces that I implemented from being able to be owner operator into a business leader. So for those of you that don't know, I own Gracie Pack MMA. We are a jiu-jitsu and MMA school located in Tampa, Florida. We are in our 11th year of business. I am an off-site owner. I go to the school around once a week. I'll actually be going in after today's session to do our team training, right? And trainings are different than meetings. And we're going to get to that here in a second. But I truly believe having this implemented and these 6 different types of meetings allows me to help kind of, steer the ship without having to be inside of the building every day. Okay. And maybe you want to be inside the building every day, which is totally cool. That just wasn't in line with, what I ultimately wanted. Okay. Here are some concepts that I want you to take away, because I'm going to literally show you the bullet point. Like, this is exactly what we are going over through each of these types of meetings. And maybe some of these bullet points just don't, vibe with you, which is completely okay. I'm not here to say these are the only ways to run a meeting. I'm here to say this is how we've found success in our companies and how we run meetings. The concepts for effective communication need to be this. There's got to be a clear objective. What is the purpose of this meeting? Why are we here? You absolutely should run an agenda to keep you on track. How many of you have lesson plans for your martial arts school? Let me know in the comments. Yes or no? Do you have lesson plans for your classes? Of course you do. Why would we not have a lesson plan for our meetings then? We know how important it is to do it for our students. Maybe we should do it for our team. You need to have some form of time management to make sure that people aren't going off on tangents, especially you, because that can happen often. I want engagement and participation. We actually had one of our all hands on deck meetings a couple of Fridays ago, and oftentimes team members will bring in their laptops. And what I noticed is, because I wasn't nipping it in the bud when I saw them, because they want to take notes, which I think is great, right? And some people are going to take notes faster on a laptop than they would pen to paper. But one of the concepts that I was going over was so important. I told everybody no laptops allowed, because we need to have a conversation. Okay. There's got to be open participation and engagement with actionable outcomes. By the end of this meeting, I know I'm responsible for doing this, this, and this. And then there's got to be some form of follow-up. And this is usually where a lot of us drop the ball in terms of, okay, I gave the team the actionable outcomes. They know the steps that they're supposed to be implementing, but then there's no follow-up, and then you just forget about it the next week. Okay. So these are the concepts that I want you to think about when you are building the agenda for your meetings. Mr. Sky said shutting laptops down was a game. 100%. Yes. Very good. And Mr. Blackman, members have their phones on the meeting, pisses me off when they look at it. That's actually interesting. You said that. I had a team member who has, he has the phone Mr. Metzger has, which is the one that like folds open. I think it's one of the Androids, and it's like basically almost like a mini tablet. And he had like a little stylus, and he was always on it in his meetings. And he's like, I'm taking notes. And I'm like, yeah, you're taking notes, but you also have at the, at your fingertips access to the entire world, and everybody has access to you as well, which is why I'm not a huge fan of taking notes on my phone, because there's just so many distractions on it. Okay. I want to make sure that we understand there's a difference between meetings and trainings, and what we're going over are just meetings, right? I told you after today's session, I'm going to my school to do a training for my team. That is different than the meetings that we're going over. So we're not talking about trainings here. We are talking about meetings. Mr. Garcia, over communicating is huge for our academy. I agree. I think that I think one of the struggles that we have as school owners are things that we believe is common sense and common knowledge that we don't like bring up. It's because we think it's common sense and common knowledge. And I mean, just look at the world. There's not that many people that do have common sense and common knowledge. So absolutely, I'd rather you over communicate than under communicate. So this is where I want you guys to go ahead and grab a pen and a paper, because we're going to draw out what I call meeting mastery. Okay, meeting mastery pyramid. So you're going to need a pen and a paper. And let me go ahead and I got to reshare because I'm going to share my iPad here. Assuming our employees know, let me just pull that up. Assuming our employees know is my biggest downfall. 100%. Communication is what I'm working on now. Well, Ms. Ramos will definitely have a game plan for that. Can you guys see my screen? I'm kind of drawing some squiggly lines. Thank you, Mr. Keffer. Appreciate the thumbs up. Okay, so I want you to write at the top, meeting mastery pyramid. Okay, and we are going to draw triangle. That we're going to call a pyramid. Okay, so there are going to be 6 aspects of this. So we're going to draw a line going across, another line going across, another line going across, and then at the top, and then in between here, I want you to draw a line going down. Okay, so I'll give you a second to kind of draw that out on your piece of paper. Okay. So we have 6 total spots here. Yes, Miss Victoria, we will send out a replay after. All right, cool. So the base meeting, and I'm putting this as the foundation because everything else should be building off of this, is an annual meeting that you host once a year that you run for 1 to 2 days. And this really just depends on size of your team, right? If you have a smaller team, you can get away with it just doing it in 1 day. If you have a larger team, probably going to need 2 days. Okay. And this annual meeting is where we are recapping the previous year and we are planning out for the future year, and we're setting our goals. We're setting our 1-year goals. And from those 1-year goals, we'll be able to break them down quarterly. Which brings me to your next type of meeting you should be hosting, which is your quarterly meeting, okay? This quarterly meeting, and I have slides for each one of these with detail, but I just kind of want you to see this from a 30,000 view up. And I also have who should be sitting in on them, okay? But this quarterly meeting is typically going to be anywhere from 6 to 8 hours. Oh my gosh, Chris, you're going to spend almost like an entire day 4 times a year? Yes, we are. All right, what's the famous quote? If I'm going to chop down a tree, what is he doing more than anything else? He's sharpening the axe, right? This is what we're doing there. The next type of meeting is what we call a weekly meeting, and we follow the EOS template of a level 10 meeting. It's called a level 10 meeting because at the end of the meeting, you have everybody rate it with the goal of being a 10. 10 is like, man, this was on track. We were on time, started on time, ended on time. I've got clear expectations. I know what my next steps are. Okay. This is going to be 60 minutes. And then we have the one-on-ones. Okay. And very similar to like consulting and how you will more likely get better results when you are coaching and you have a coach that's one-on-one versus in a group model, right? Which is why Maya Elite, we do one-on-one coaching because we just know that we can get people results faster with it. We also do one-on-ones in our school, okay? And there's 2 levels to the one-on-one. There's the owners to the leadership team. Okay, so I do one-on-ones, okay, and I do this weekly, and it lasts about 15 minutes. And then my leaders do this with their team members. And same thing, it takes about 15 minutes. Okay. Last up, we have our daily huddles. Okay. And these daily huddles typically take about 5 to 10 meetings. Okay. So if you look at this, you've got your daily stuff, you got your weekly stuff, you got your quarterly stuff, and you got your annual stuff. And we're going to start with breaking down what the annual meeting should look like. Now, I know that we're just about halfway through the year. It doesn't mean you have to wait until the end of the year to do this, guys. You could do like a semi-annual one if you did not previously do an annual meeting. So I don't want you to write this off like, oh, it's another 6 months until December. I'm not going to think about that, because the annual meeting is where we are going to be able to assess how far along we have or haven't come based off of the goals that we set. So I'm going to dive into each one of these: the annual, the quarterly, the weekly, the one-on-one owner to leader, and then the one-on-one leader to team member. And then we're going to unpack what that daily huddle looks like. Okay. So let me stop the share on the iPad and let's go back to the keynote. L to T is the leader to the team member. And Mr. Garcia says this is good for a visual owner. Awesome. Thank you. Okay. I think Mr. Sky had a question there. Annual for the leadership only, full-time or any employee. Yeah, so we're going to get to that right now, sir. All right. So let's dive into the annual meeting. Okay. So we do an all hands on deck for our annual meeting. Okay. That is our full-timers. That is our part-timers. And that's for the martial arts school. Okay. For my agency, because I got almost 30 employees, we do this annual meeting with just our leadership team on the first day. And then on the second day, we bring everybody on board. And what we found, because we didn't used to do that, we used to do everybody on the team. And if you're a martial arts school and you got 5, 6, 7 locations, you might want to do it this way as well, right? What ended up happening is that when we were talking about the issues that we wanted to unpack, there were just a lot of chefs in the kitchen. And because of that, we decided to have those conversations specifically with the leadership team. And then on the second day, unpack what we decided to do moving forward with everybody else on the team. So there are levels to the game, right? I put out a video yesterday about what I believe the owner, the CEO, the visionary of the school should be doing. And if you're at $5,000 a month or $10,000 a month, that's your day is going to look more, a lot different than somebody that's at $50,000, $60,000 a month, which is going to look different than somebody that has multiple locations. So there are levels to the game, right? And the number of employees that you have are going to play into that. Okay. So this would typically be 1 to 2 days, depending on the number of employees that you had. Mr. Sky says exactly why I asked. 100%. Got how frequently? Owners to leader and leader to team. Do it weekly, sir. I do it weekly. And I went from doing it monthly down to doing it weekly because I'm not on site every day. And that was, one of the main purposes that I wanted to share today was the meeting communication rhythm that I put in place to allow me to shift from being that owner operator that's inside of the school every day to a business leader. And, one good thing out of COVID that happened is that everybody knows how to use Zoom. So these one-on-ones I'm able to do in a Zoom room the same way that we do it here. So it doesn't require me to go in and I still get the same results. And we'll go over the one-on-ones here in a second. So your annual meeting, and what you're going to notice is with these meetings, the start of the meeting, we typically want to kick it off with something positive. And I think this is a big mistake that a lot of owners make because you have a lot that you want to go into. And I get it. You want to dive in and you want to unpack it instantly. But sometimes we have to reframe people's mindsets going into the meeting. And one of the best ways to get people out of a funk, one of the best ways to change somebody's attitude is to ask them to share something positive or something that they're grateful for. Okay. And what you'll notice is that there is redundancy in these meetings in terms of how we are kicking them off, right? When I do one-on-ones with clients, the first question I ask them is like, tell me something good. It could be something personal. It could be something professional, but tell me something good. Okay. So we do a check-in on the annual meeting and we ask everybody to provide a professional win and a personal win for that year. Okay. The second thing that we go into, and this is an EOS concept. And when I email this out, when I email the keynote out, I'll put this in there for you. But it's called the VTO. And this was a game changer for our company. VTO stands for Vision Traction Organizer. And it basically organizes your values, your mission statement, your marketing strategy, your 3-year goals, your 1-year goals, and your 90-day goals. And this is something that we have built into all of our processes in terms of like our annual meeting, in terms of onboarding new hires. Everybody gets a copy of this Vision Traction Organizer. And we basically review it in the annual. We want everybody on the same page, understanding like these are our core values. Okay. This is our core focus. This is where we want to be 3 years from now. We've got the date. We've got the revenue. We've got what does it look like? We also have who is our target market. I think it's really important to remind your team members, who are we trying to attract to our business? The second page of the Vision Traction Organizer has our 1-year plan, our rocks, which are our 90-day projects, and then long-term issues. So a long-term issue is typically something that consistently gets put on the back burner because it's something that we want to fix, but isn't like super high priority to do right now. And we keep a running list of that so that when it is time to pull it off the long-term issues and turn it into a rock, which is a 90-day project, we have it listed there. This Vision Traction Organizer gets everybody in your company on the same page, making sure that we're all in the same boat and we're all rowing the same way. Okay. This might seem like a small detail, but it has had a huge impact. Okay. One of the examples I want to give you is I had to fire an employee. And I had another employee that, was upset about it. Obviously, nobody gets excited when somebody has to be let go. And the employee that was upset about the other one being fired basically said to me, well, I hope that never has to happen again. Well, he was not on the same page of what our 3-year and 10-year goal is, because I'm building a 9-figure company. That is our like big, hairy, audacious goal. Okay. On the way to building a 9-figure company, are more people going to get fired? Yes. All right. It's not a fun part of what we do, but it is a part of what we do. So having everybody on the same team of this is the vision that we are casting, and this is how we're going to gain traction, unpacking our issues, setting those 90-day rocks, and then chipping away at that long-term goal with our 1-year plan. So a part of our annual meeting is we unpack this VTO, okay? We then go into a team building exercise, all right? And literally, I just Google team building exercises, and we do one. One of the ones that we did recently was build a company coat of arms. And we gave everybody like this coat of arms and we gave crayons and colored pencils, and they had to build the company coat of arms based off of our core values. Okay. We've done scavenger hunts as team building exercises. Okay. But I would 100% put that into your annual meeting. Okay. The next thing that we do is review all of the projects that we committed to getting done. How often do you commit to a project and then it never gets done? We call these rocks. We call them rocks because they are the important aspects of our job. They're not pebbles. They're not sand. They're the projects that are really going to help move us forward. In our martial arts school, that might be like switching a CRM. That might be changing websites. That might be implementing a new rotating curriculum. It's not something that you're going to be able to get done in a day, not something you're going to be able to get done in a week. And there might be multiple people that need to help out with this, okay? So we review the previous quarter rocks, and then we also review all of the KPIs, okay? I think it's important to talk about being open, whether or not you do an open book management or you do closed book. And what I mean by that is, do you share your numbers with your team or your leadership team? I do. Our team knows the revenue that's coming in. They know all of the important, KPIs and things like that, because it's really hard for them to hit a goal if they don't know exactly what that goal is. Mr. Blackman says we share. Great. Okay. So we review it. Then we go over our right now picture. Okay. Like, where is the company right now? What is our active count? What was our average billing for the year? What does our team look like? Like, how many team members do we have? What does the business look like right now? Okay. Then we go into our issues list. Okay. One of the really great things that we started doing was having team members submit issues prior to the meeting. And this really shaved off a lot of time. So an example of an issue, this was one that came up for us with the martial arts school, is that we've been having a lot of Spanish only speaking 3 and 4-year-olds come in for one-on-one introductory lessons. And we have one coach that kind of speaks Spanish, right? Maybe more of Spanglish, right? And the coaches that were responsible for the one-on-one were getting very frustrated because it was hard for them to communicate. So that was an issue that they had brought up, right? Another potential issue might be, we're consistently having kids show up without their gear or their equipment. What are we going to do that, right? So this is where you're going to unpack. And when you unpack this issue list, this is also an opportunity to come up with ideas, okay? What new ideas do we potentially want to go after in the upcoming year, okay? When we IDS it, we identify what the issue is, we discuss it, and then we solve it. There's 3 steps: identify, discuss, and solve. One of our core values is that we are solution seekers. And regardless if that's a core value or not, oftentimes when we bring up issues in our company to our team members, they look at it through a lens of how it's not going to work. And one of the things that I would present to you is to present it to them. I don't want you to think about how this isn't going to work. I want to have a conversation about how we can make it work, okay? From these issues, oftentimes 90-day projects will come out of it, and there's action steps, which we call to-dos, which are things that need to get done in 7 days, okay? Once we've hashed out all the issues, we then set our 1-year goal. Where do we want to be in 1 year? And we do it based off of the review of the previous year. I'd love to know in the comments, what would you be happy with as an owner in terms of a percentage of increase from 1 year to the next? And there's no right or wrong answer here. Let me know in the comments, what is the percentage increase? Do you want to have a 5%, 10%, 15, 20, 30? Awesome. Keep them coming, guys. Let me see them. All right, we got 10 plus, 20, 10, 15 to 20, 10, 20 is our goal, 10. Awesome. Okay, so now that you know that, you can look at your previous year and you can say, okay, our goal is to increase that by 15%, which is going to allow you to set what the 1-year goal is. And then from the 1 year, you can break it down to your 90 days. So we're setting the goal. And I think that this is so important to do with your team so that they have buy-in. It's different for you to go, all right, guys, this is the number we have to hit versus, hey, guys, this is the data that we have. We want to have a company that is growing, because when the company is growing, there's more opportunity for everybody else. So what do we think is a goal that we could set that we might not 100% know that we can hit? It's going to be a little bit of a stretch, and you get them to provide that feedback as well. Okay. From there, we set our rocks, which are our 90-day goals. I'll give you an example. Our first quarter goal in both of our companies were to have all of our playbooks complete, all of the playbooks that are like our frontline playbooks. So the playbooks that we are doing on a daily, weekly, and monthly basis. It was a huge rock. I would actually call it like a mountain and not just a rock. And we hit it in both of our companies. Okay. So that's an example of a rock. We then calendarize for the future year. Okay. So we're going to set up what are all the recruiting events? What are all the retention events? What are all the revenue events that we are committing to? Some of these are difficult to do later on in the year, especially like a lot of the community events, because they just, other places haven't chosen dates. So we kind of look at it as like the first 6 months is kind of, set in pen, and the last 6 months is set in pencil. And then we conclude. And part of the conclusion is, does everybody know what their next steps are? Okay. Do they know what their rocks are? Do they know what their to-dos are? And we also say, does everybody have a clear plan of what the next year looks like? Okay. And then finally, we have them rate it on a scale of 1 to 10. 1, this should have been an email. 10, this was amazing. I understand where we're going. I have clarity, and I understand what my next steps are. Okay. So this is our annual meeting. If you are not doing some form of annual meeting with your team, I highly recommend it. It just really allows you to set clear expectations, and it allows you to get everything out of your head and the vision that you have for the company and share that. They cannot read your mind, right? Which really comes down to clear communication, right? Okay, let's go ahead and go into our quarterly meeting. Okay, so we did the annual meeting. Now you're going to see the quarterly meeting. And I spent a lot of time on the quarterly because the concepts you're going to see in these other meetings as well. Okay. So the first thing that we do is we do a check-in. Again, give us your professional win and your personal win for the last 90 days. We then once again go through our VTO, and we're going to cover all of the values. One of the things that I love when we are talking about values, and I think, yeah, I've got core values. Okay, do you hire, fire, reward, and review based off of your core values, and how often are you talking about them? It should be every time you're in a meeting. And one of the things that we love to do is when we're covering those core values, we ask, can anybody on the team give an example of somebody else on the team that has really embodied this core value? Okay. We then review the prior quarter. So we had the annual meeting at the end of December or the beginning of January. You're going to have your quarterly meeting in the beginning of April, and you're going to review your first quarter. Now, here we are. We're 2 weeks away from the end of the second quarter. Isn't that nuts? It's absolutely crazy how fast this year has gone. So you guys can set your quarterly meeting in the beginning of July to go over all of your quarterly KPIs and be able to set future rocks if you've never done this. Okay. So that's going to be one of my challenges to you. If you are not kind of looking at your school in 90-day sprints, kind of how we look at it is like we're in these 90-day sprints. Highly recommend you start implementing that type of meeting rhythm. Okay. We then unpack our issues list. Some quarters, you're going to have a lot of issues. Other quarters, you're not going to have as many. And the issues list and the amount that you unpack will really determine whether, this is a 4-hour meeting or a 6-hour meeting. Okay. We then set our next 90-day goal. Okay. We had set a goal at the beginning of the year. We just got done with the quarter. We need to know, are we on track or are we off track? And if we're off track, then next quarter's goals are going to have to shift so we can stay on track to that 1 year. Okay. We then set our rocks, which are our projects that we are committing to for the next 90 days. We review the next quarter's calendar. So, okay, these are all the parent night out events we're having. These are the in-house tournaments. These are the, competitions that we are going to. This is the Father's Day event, the Mother's Day event. Okay. And we review that calendar. And then once again, we conclude and we ask everybody, do you have clear expectations? Do you understand what your next steps are? And then you rate the meeting. Okay. So the annual and the quarterly have a lot of overlap and a lot of similarities. Okay. Bridget says we take our team members somewhere pretty for our annual. 100%. We do as well. We've gone to like hotels on the water. There's something really, beautiful and therapeutic, I think, about being on the water. This last time we actually did it in our office just due to size of numbers, but I love the idea. And we did that for many, many years, taking them off site, because it just, allows you to kind of think, I think, a little bit more freely and dream a little bit bigger. Okay. Mr. Sky, would you share company financial VTO goals and financial KPI with a new hire? We do, because their expectations of their role and the roles and responsibilities need to fit in with where they are trying to go. Okay. And if you are doing the pathway, Mr. Sky, then, your leadership team is definitely going to need to know where that's at. Okay. We were going to do river rafting, but 3 deaths so far with high raft. Yeah, maybe pick something a little less excessive, Mr. Blackman. Okay. All right. Next up, this one is the game changer, the weekly level 10 meeting. So we do this weekly. Okay. This is going to be with your full-timers, okay? So that's typically your leadership team. I do this with our program director, our chief instructor, and our senior instructor. Those are our full-time employees that we have, okay? I think one of the big challenges that a lot of people run into is that they have trouble finding meeting times that everybody can go to. And to me, this is the difference between offering a career and just offering a part-time gig. This is built into their job description. It's built into the job offer that these are the hours that they are required to be there for the meetings. Okay. We do our weekly level 10 meetings Monday at 2 p.m. I do believe it needs to be on a Monday or Tuesday, no later in the week. So guess how we kick it off? You guessed it. We share a personal and professional win. 5 minutes. It's very quick. Okay. This is something personal that happened. That was a win. This is something professional that happened that was a win. Our team knows this is going to be the first thing that we kick it off with. So they need to start thinking about it prior. Okay. The second thing that we go to is we go through scorecards. Your company needs to have a scorecard. And the way that I want you to think about it is if you were on, a 6-month sabbatical vacation, and the only way that you would be able to find out how your company was doing so you could give them instructions was with a spreadsheet that gets sent to you on a weekly basis. That's it. You get one spreadsheet. What are the numbers that you would want to see that would allow you to guide your team on what their next action steps are? That is what your scorecard is. And these are your key performing indicators. Okay. In the martial arts school, we basically have all the off the mat stuff that we're looking at: leads, appointments, shows, closes, cancellations, upgrades, renewals, right? And then we also have an on the mat number that we're looking at. We're looking at attendance on a day-to-day basis. We're looking at sniper chats. Were there any injuries? Okay. Your scorecard and every single one of those numbers should have a goal that you are trying to hit on a weekly basis. So let's say, just for simplistic purposes, your lead goal was, the goal is to get 10 leads a week. Okay. If the previous week, which what you're reporting on, you got 15 leads, that means it's on track and it's green. If you got 5 leads, that means it's off track. Now, what typically happens is you start a discussion on why that is, and you go on this tangent. And it oftentimes does not allow you to get through everything else in your agenda. And this is the beautiful part about this level 10 meeting, is that we have a specific section to discuss issues. So if there is a scorecard number that is off, whether it was leads, whether it was signups, whether it was too many cancellations, we drop it down to the issues portion of the agenda. And this is so important. And then we're going to continue to go through the scorecard. Okay. Maybe one of the numbers that was up is, last Tuesday, the instructor team only did 1 sniper chat, and their goal is 1 per class. We run 6 classes. There should be at least 6. We're going to drop it down to issues. Okay. So you go through the scorecard. And again, that scorecard, it's the numbers that if you were on a sabbatical vacation and it was the only form of communication is what would you want on that spreadsheet? Okay. Takes 5 minutes. If you are discussing them during the scorecard, it's going to take a lot longer than 5 minutes. So you drop it down to issues. Okay. We then review our rocks and whether or not we are on track or off track. If they are off track, we drop it down to issues and we discuss. Headlines. This is super important, especially going from owner operator to business leader. You're not in the business every day. You're not seeing what's happening every day. So we do a section called headlines, which are student headlines and then team member headlines. It's the stuff that the parents typically only tell the program director because the instructor's on the mat, and it's stuff that the instructor needs to know. Okay. This is so important that we actually have a student headline channel in our Slack communication app that we use. Okay. This is, Johnny fell off his skateboard and, twisted his ankle. He's going to be out for the next 3 weeks. That's a headline. Okay. You're also going to have team member headlines. And this is an opportunity for your team to shout each other out. Shout out to Coach Nate for covering my shift last week when I was celebrating my birthday. Okay. So this is where we go over student and team headlines. It's also an opportunity for us to talk about if anybody's going to be out as well. Okay. Next section, 5 minutes, is the to-do list. This is where accountability comes in play, guys. And this is huge. Okay. Out of these meetings, there's going to be action steps that are going to have to happen. Okay. How do you know whether or not these action steps are getting done? We call a to-do anything that can be done within the next 7 days. So by the next meeting, this thing has got to be done. That to-do has got to be done. And we keep an ongoing list of the to-dos. Okay, program director, these were your to-dos. Senior instructor, these were your to-dos. Chief instructor, these are your to-dos. And we talk about the ones that were set from the previous meeting. Do you think anybody on my leadership team wants to show up to that meeting and in front of their peers say, no, I didn't get it done? That's not something that anybody on the team wants to have to say. So we have accountability built into the meeting. Okay. The next section are the issues. Okay. Now, again, issues are also ideas. So I also want you to, if you're going to do this model, let your team know it's not just bringing up issues, it's also bringing up ideas. Okay. As a martial arts school, you're going to have some ongoing things that you should be checking in on a weekly basis, such as the calendar, new students, upgrades, renewals. And if you're doing training with your instructors or your off the mat team, what that agenda is going to be. That's the first thing that we unpack. We just kind of have this ongoing issue of, all right, we just need to make sure we're looking over the calendar, making sure everybody's good. Who are the new students? Who are the upgrades? Who are the renewals? And what training do we want to focus on for the team this week? Then we unpack the new issues. And the issues are based off of what got dropped down from the scorecards. There might have been an issue that had to get dropped down from the headline. There might have been an issue that got dropped down from the to-do because it didn't get done. And we unpack them by identifying what the issue is, discussing it, and solving it. Okay. Once issues is done, and this is where the bulk of the meeting takes place, 30 minutes, we then conclude. We conclude by recapping your to-dos. We say, okay, program director, based out of the issues, you got this thing that's got to get done. Head instructor, you've got this thing that's got to get done. And we recap them so they all have clarity on what is required of them. We then talk about any cascading messages. And this is huge, especially for those of you that have a lot of part-timers. You have younger, maybe assistant instructors, 15, 16-year-olds that, obviously aren't sitting in on this meeting. What are the cascading messages that other people on the team need to be aware of? Okay. Maybe you made a change to the Father's Day event and you had so many registrations that you needed to separate it into 2 different events. That's a cascading message. It's a message that the people that are also involved that weren't in the meeting need to know about. So we recap the to-dos, we discuss the cascading messages, and then we rate it 1 to 10. Okay. Mr. Sky, do you ever have something that is a to-do but will not be need to be done in 7 days? If not, so we still mark it as a to-do. We actually use a software called 90.io. It's an EOS software and it allows us to set dates. So if you had something that was not, maybe you wanted it done in 2 weeks or 3 weeks, or maybe even within 3 days, we mark that. You could do this in a simple spreadsheet and just put the due date earlier or later than the next meeting. And then you keep it on that spreadsheet as a reminder that, okay, they've got another 2 weeks or they've got another 3 weeks if it's something that doesn't need to be done within 7 days. Great question. Okay. All right. I know I just unpacked a lot with this level 10 meeting. And what I'm trying to do is just open your eyes to different types of meeting agenda that allow you to have this effective communication. It allows you to have participation and engagement. It allows you to see the most important numbers in the business so that you can make data-driven decisions. And this has been one of the absolute best types of meetings that we have implemented, and it's called the level 10. Before I move on to the last two pieces, and these will be really quick, any questions on that? And thank you for those of you that are dropping them in the chat box. I'd love to know from that level 10 meeting, what was your biggest takeaway? What was maybe like the one thing like, man, okay, that's something that we should probably start discussing during our meetings, okay? That's basically how Janny runs our meetings. Awesome. I need a Slack training. Show me your, I'm actually doing a Slack training for our GoPro clients next week. The scorecard. Yes, Mr. Keffer, that is huge, right? What are the numbers that you want to know so that you can make data-driven decisions and we can talk about on track or off track? Ms. Hamlin, love the idea of a channel for headlines. Exactly. This way, you know, if you're meeting on Monday and there's a, you know, something happens on Tuesday, they can just drop it in the channel so everybody's aware, and then we discuss it the following week. Okay. Carolyn says scorecards. Awesome. Okay, guys, let's go over some of these one-on-ones. Okay. And it's the exact same agenda that I use. So this is me to my leadership team. So me to the program director and to the chief instructor. And then the leadership team, whether that's your chief instructor to assistant instructors, program director to maybe you have a front desk admin. This is quick. I mean, sometimes these are even 5 minutes. Okay. Typically don't go longer than 15. What are your wins this week? I do it on Wednesday because it's halfway through the week, right? I have my level 10 on Monday. I check in on Wednesday. And then when I go in on Thursday to help with trainings, then I'm seeing them. Okay. And again, this is done on Zoom the same way I do the level 10 meeting on Zoom as well. And I think that's another thing to remember that, you know, if you wanted to do it in the morning and you make that a part of their job, it can be done on Zoom. It's not like everybody has to be in the school to get the meeting done. Okay. So these are really quick, 5, 10, 15 minutes. Wins. Give me your wins. Okay. Challenges. Do you have any challenges? Don't ask what are the challenges, because then they're going to make something up. Do you have any challenges? Are there any questions on the calendar? So we use a Google Calendar in our school. This is how we are able to keep everybody on track with all of the daily, weekly, monthly action steps that need to get done, right? We've got emails going out. We've got camps going on. So we just review this. And I ask, like, do you have any questions? Are there any, you know, pain points? Is there anything that you're struggling with? So we review the calendar. That is just, you know, the calendar is a huge resource and asset for us. So that is why you're going to see it built into our meetings. I ask if they have any questions, and then I give an opportunity for them to provide feedback for me, and then vice versa. Okay. So it's super quick. And what I've learned is oftentimes, you know, we naturally are mentors to our students. My question is, are you naturally being a mentor? Are you putting the systems and processes in place to be able to mentor your team? And when I, you know, ask my team, you know, what are some of the things that you really, you know, like, oftentimes you hear the word mentorship as a part of what they're getting in this career path that they chose. Your job as the owner is to take care of the team so that the team can take care of your students. And this is a mentorship aspect that you can implement and just be able to check in to see how everything is going. Okay. This is the one-on-one. Doesn't need to be anything, you know, crazy. We're not utilizing any software. It's just a conversation that we're having in a quick check-in. Okay. Mr. Sky, we have our semi-annual quarterly meeting set in 2 weeks. You gave me a great frame. Awesome. Glad to hear it, sir. We are new and have 4 owners and no employees yet. Should we be having all of these, or is that the goal for when we have employees? I mean, I think if there's 4 owners for one location, it's a lot of chefs. I think that you have, you guys need to have, I guess it would be 2 on 2 if it's a husband and wife kind of thing, but you should have these check-ins 100%. Ms. Hanlon, how do you frame the feedback question? Do you have any feedback for me? That's it. Literally, do you have any feedback for me? And you better be open and ready to take it. All right. And then if you want to provide feedback, this is a game changer question. I learned this from Kelly Murray. You ask, are you in a place for me to provide feedback right now? Okay. Oftentimes, if we don't ask that, and maybe their significant other broke up with them, maybe their dog died, like there's just so much that often we don't know what's going on in personal people's lives. Maybe they just got, maybe like the school isn't on track and they're not hitting their KPIs. So I always ask, like, are you in a place to receive feedback? Okay. And I think that's a very important question when you go into that. Okay. We have it on there though, as just a reminder, like, hey, this is 2-way. Okay. I need you to provide feedback. One of the pieces of feedback that Zach, my operations manager, gave me was, I wish you did ready, fire, aim a little bit slower. So that's one of my kind of like concepts. I'm a ready, fire, aim person. And he wished there was a little bit more readiness that was going on before we fired. I like to move fast, right? That's just kind of part of my personality. I'm high D on the disc. And that was feedback that he gave me, which was important to hear. Sometimes I'm moving too fast for everybody else. Okay. Yes, Kelly is a genius. Awesome. All right, last up, and I have daily huddles because I think it just depends on how your team is built and when they are coming in. But this is like a 5 to 10 minute. This is a standing meeting. Ain't nobody sitting down. We ain't got time for that. Tell me something positive. You're gonna see it. You see it in all the meetings. Tell me something positive. Give me something good. I aced my my vocabulary test. Maybe one of your high schooler tells you that. Awesome. Okay. This is so important to get people in the right mind, guys. It's literally impossible to be upset and grateful in the same moment. Try it. Try to think of something you're grateful for and be upset at the same time. It's impossible. Okay. So we kick it off. Tell me something positive. We discuss key topics for the day. So this is just, are there any cascading messages, right? Parent called in. Hey, Kennedy broke her ankle. She's going to be out for the next couple of weeks. Why don't we send a, we miss you video? Okay. Anybody up for renewal or upgrades that we need to have conversations with? Okay. Are there any birthdays? We do a tunnel of fear. So is there anybody that we need to do a tunnel of fear for? Mr. Blackman, you're drawing all over my keynote, sir. Mat assignments. Curious, how many kids classes do you guys run in one day in a row? Like, what's the max number of kids classes you are running in a row? Let me know in the chat. Is it 3 kids classes, 4 kids classes, 5 kids classes? Carolyn says 2. Miss Hamlin says 4. Awesome. Mr. Sky, 5 to 6. That's where we're at. So we are currently running 6 kids classes a day, Monday through Friday. How do you think an instructor, if there was only one that was responsible for teaching all 6 of those classes in a row, would feel at the end of those 6 classes? Exhausted. Right? I mean, we all know the level of energy that it takes to teach those kids classes. So this is why we have a chief instructor, senior instructors, and different levels of assistant instructors, because they have the ability to run class. So we set who is the lead for each class. All right, Coach Brandon, you're going to run the first 2 classes. Coach Leo, you're going to run the next 2 classes. Coach Nate, you're going to run the next 2 classes. Okay. So we assign that at the beginning of the day. This way, there's just clear communication. Do a quick lesson plan overview. Okay. And then we grab any equipment. Now, I know that there's, probably quite a bit out in the martial arts industry. I know Mr. Kovar has a great kind of daily huddle, outline. This is what has worked well for us to keep everybody on the same page, especially when you have like 14, 15, 16-year-olds that, in Florida, 14-year-old, they can't work more than 3 hours. So we have them come in right before classes start, and they're not able to participate in some of these larger meetings and things like that. So this allows us all just to get on the same page. Okay. So these are the meetings that we're doing. You got your bottom line. Everything stems from this annual meeting. Okay. You then have your quarterly meetings. You have your weekly level 10. You have your one-on-ones, owner to leaders, right? And then leaders to team. And this is, one of those big ones to implement going from owner operator to a business leader. And then you have your daily huddle. Out of these annual, quarterly, weekly level 10, one-to-ones or daily huddles, let me know in the chat, which one do you think you need to improve on the most? Because that's going to be your homework assignment. Which one is one that maybe you're not doing, maybe one that needs some tweaking? Weekly, that will help me so much with follow-up, 100%. Quarterly, one-to-one, love it, Mr. Sky. Quarterly, weekly, level 10, need to start with the weekly, 100%. Weekly needs to be improved on the most. I agree. That's the one that really kind of keeps the pulse of the business. Mr. Molnar, the annual, awesome. Quarterly, weekly, and daily. Annual, weekly, level 10 and up. We do them, but the framework helps so much. Awesome. That was my goal, guys, was just to give you, the step-by-step. There are tons of EOS. So EOS is the Entrepreneurial Operating System. If you just Google EOS level 10 meeting and you go to images, you'll be able to find like the actual document. So this is the one that you can download and you can use. And then you also obviously have it in this keynote that we will be sending out. Okay. Mr. Blackman says all of it. We are not in the studio as much, and this will organize the team expectations. 100%. Highly suggest reading the book Traction. 100%. That's top 5. EOS does have a YouTube as well. And I mean, you could even hire an EOS implementer. That's what we did. It ain't cheap. It is $6,000 per quarter. So it's $2,000 a month. It ain't cheap. We implemented one for our agency, just because with where we're at and the amount of people and the revenue that we're doing. But it is a really, really great system. And Traction is the book that kind of put EOS on the map. Okay. All right, guys, I know we're like 2 minutes over. Does anybody have any final questions? You all, said whether it was the daily, the weekly, the quarterly, or the annual. We're going to get this recording out within the next couple hours. As soon as the video is processed, we'll mail it out, email it out. We'll have the keynote in there. But any final questions before we wrap up? Mr. Sky says, thank you. Great review. 100%, right? That was an awesome session. Thank you. Good nuggets for today. Great. All right, guys. Appreciate you as always. Grow Pro clients. We're doing a masterclass on Slack next week. Hope to see you there. Everybody have a great day, and we'll talk to you soon. See ya.